Hey everybody, this is going to be a guitar-centric video and it's going to be more geared toward beginners, but even if you're not a beginner, who knows, you might still get something out of this approach to thinking about music theory and applying it to the fretboard. In one of the first videos that I uploaded to my channel, I talked about this idea of seeing the major scale as built in two parts, two whole tone sections basically. We have a cluster of 3 from one whole tone scale, and a cluster of 4 from the other whole tone scale. You put them together, boom, you got your major scale, right? So how do we apply that insight to the guitar, to the fretboard? That's what I want to talk about in this video. But first things first, knowing your whole tone scales, at least in the abstract, like just literally being able to say the pitches in order, and then also being able to do the equivalent of counting by 2 essentially, which would be saying your whole tone scales, it'll allow you to take what we're going to talk about and, apply it more concretely to like actual key signatures and scales with their pitches. So when you're a kid, you learn to count, and after you can just say the numbers in order, you might do your odds and evens like 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, and so on. And that would be analogous to saying your whole tone scales. C, D, E, F sharp, A flat, B flat, C, blah, blah, blah. And then the other whole tone would be D flat, E flat, F, G, A, B, and it just repeats. It's the same 6 notes. If you can do that, and maybe even say them forwards and backwards, then a lot of your work is going to be done, to be honest, in terms of learning major scales. Okay, so now let's talk about the guitar. Let's just pick a random note. Here I'm grabbing a D on the G string. And let's just grab a cluster of 3 notes, 3 whole tone notes. There's a few different ways we can do this. We can grab all the notes on the same string. We can grab 2 notes on the same string and then have 1 note on the upper string. And we can have 2 notes on the higher string. Yeah, so we can have like this, or like this, or like this. That pattern is important to remember. Same string, 2 on the starting string, and 2 on the upper string. So in other words, that little cluster can take 3 shapes on that string pair. Let's test it. Let's do that somewhere else. Boom, A flat. So same thing. Let's put all the notes on the same string. And then let's have 2 notes on that first string. And then let's have 2 notes on the upper string. So again, there's 3 ways to play that cluster starting on that same note. And right there, we just did all the ways. Like, that's it. All over the guitar, you can test it. Most of them will be like what we just talked about. 3 notes on the same string, which I usually play starting with my pointer finger. The second way, 2 notes on the lower string, starts with the middle finger. And then with the pinky finger, 2 notes on the higher string with the pinky finger. Most of the situations, they're going to look like that, one of those 3 patterns. The only time it's different is with the, these 2 strings right here, the G and the B string, because they're tuned differently, since they're major third instead of fourths, right? So, playing those patterns in a bunch of places, just do it anywhere, right? Pick a finger and just put it somewhere. Boom. So here. So then you do the pinky shape. And those are your notes. And if you can, like we said before, count by 2s, and you know your whole tone notes, then you know what those other 2 notes are. F, G, and A. And no matter which pattern, which shape, which way you choose to finger those 3 notes, you know that those three pitches are the same. F, G, A, F, G, A. Okay, so I would say try that a little bit. Like pick a note. Maybe you don't know all the notes on the fretboard, but maybe you know like the notes on the on the lower two strings from having to know the root notes from playing chords and stuff, right? So let's say you know this is a A. Well, then if you can count by twos, then you know that this is a B and this is a C sharp. Okay, let's pick a different finger. Same note though on this A. Now I'm starting on my middle finger. Well, if I'm counting by twos, B and then C sharp. It's the same C sharp, you know, as over here. And if you want to challenge yourself, you can sort of do it backward because you know what the shapes will look like, right? So let's say I grab a right there. So I have a note on the high string. And instead of going like this, going up from that note, I'm going to go down, essentially working backwards. So I got to find so basically I'm making this note the top of that 3-note cluster and then saying what are the other notes below it. Can I say my whole tone scales backward? B, A, G, B, A, G, B, A, G. Okay, do that a bunch and get familiar with those shapes. And each time you do it, just try to say the notes in that little cluster. So part 2 would be 4-note clusters. So which is not too bad because all you have to do, you already know most of it, you just have to add one more note. So there are a couple ways that you can do it. I never do 4 notes on one string. Usually I almost never do that. Again, you could do 3 notes on one string. So here I'm grabbing an E flat. And the last note is on the higher string. You could also do 2 and 2. So that would be your middle finger shape. And you could also do 3 notes on the upper string. Let me see if I'm missing any. Okay, I did miss one. You could do like this. So it'd be across 3 strings actually, and you have two notes on one string in the middle. So yeah, it'd be like that. And then of course you have to do the same thing for the damn G and B string because they're a major third, so the shapes will look a little bit different, but it's kind of the same concept. Again, I pretty much never do 4 notes on the same string, so you could do 3 notes on the first string. Yeah, 3 notes on the lower string. Then you could do 2 and 2, which is probably the one I do most often for these 2 strings. Then you could do 3 notes on the upper string. And then you could do using 3 strings where there's 2 on the same string in the middle. Sorry, I missed another one actually. It is... So it's another one that has 3 strings with 2 notes in the middle. But it's just a different string set. So not the top strings, the string set below that. Hopefully that's all of them. All of the practical ones anyway. You can do a similar sort of exercise where you pick a random note and be like, I'm gonna play down my cluster of 4. I'm gonna say the notes. E, A, G, F. If you can sort of count by twos, so to speak, you can count upwards. So like I'm gonna grab a D right here. And I'm playing my cluster of 4. And if I know this is a D, then I can just say D, F sharp, A flat, F sharp, E, D. And the stuttering in my case is really just because I'm trying to decide, should I say F sharp or G flat? Stupid. It would be better if they all just had one, if all the pitches just had one letter name, but we got this weird system where they could be a sharp or flat, whatever. But anyway, so why did I just go through all of that? Well, it's because when you're learning different major scale patterns, like whether it's 3 notes per string major scale patterns, or something like the 5 shapes that Jimmy Bruno be talking about, understanding these whole tone pieces will maybe make it a little bit easier to memorize those shapes and really get familiar with them and how they sort of connect over the whole guitar. We can see those shapes, and your mind should almost separate them. Like, oh, here's my cluster of 3. Oh, here's the cluster of 4. Here's the cluster of 3 again. Here's the cluster of 4 in the next octave, you know. Your mind can sort of chunk them up into which cluster they belong to. And this is really helpful, I think, because this insight about major scales being built into whole tone pieces, in my opinion, simplifies the process of memorizing major scales. Although you could just memorize each key signature individually, little things like this help stick the information in your brain. Not only that, but going through it in the way that we just did, breaking it down into these little cluster shapes on the guitar, it really helps you to learn the theory on the guitar, you know, which is important if you play guitar. Why everybody be trying to teach us theory on the piano? I do not understand that. Yeah, so I really wish that I learned major scales this way as a guitar player. It might have sped things up for me in terms of learning the guitar. So hopefully this was helpful. I would love to know your thoughts in the comments.